as soon as like we like I heard of global pandemic, I was like, yo, that's fucking scary, but also like really interesting and cool that I'm like, I'm living
Living
this.
through
Like,
it, yeah.
if everyone on Earth had a goal to change something in the world, like imagine how fast like our race would evolve.
Do you think AI or like artificial intelligence will ever get to a point where it could do 3D animation like better than a human?
Humans are a race like we are not meant to be happy.
Do you need a swig of alcohol?
Sure, I wouldn't say no to that. Damn.
Dude, have you ever
That
tried that one right there?
the royal
Royal
mount?
Mount? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but not the honey one.
With the bee on it?
Fuck yeah.
You want to try
It's
it?
hard to see. It's like all dark.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me grab some glasses.
Station. Lowkey MTL.
I guess when I think graphic art, I'm thinking more like 3D design because like that's the
Right.
type of like visual art, graphic art that I do.
Yes. You didn't start off in like graphic design?
I started off in like film, then photography, and then graphic design.
Oh,
And then
okay.
as like time went on, I kind of just stopped like enjoying just doing like plain graphic design, and I got more into like straight up filmmaking. And then eventually I picked up kind of 3D because that was something I've always been interested in.
Okay, yeah, cool.
And when I think kind of 3D artists, off the top of my head, I don't know any that have kind of like an alter ego. I guess in one way, like having an Instagram is kind of like your alter ego if like you just kind of like don't really show yourself.
Yeah,
Like
that's true. Yeah.
there's like a Montreal guy called Aphoria. He's like a dope 3D artist, and like I've never seen his face or what he looks like. He doesn't like post about himself or anything
Right.
at all. So that's I guess kind of his like alter ego, but it's not like he doesn't kind of show like a character. Or anything.
Right, yeah, because there's also Beeple crap. I don't know if you've seen.
Yeah, Beeple is like one of my heroes. Fuck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
fuck.
didn't he just sell like an NFT recently for
I
like?
love that guy, man.
Crazy amount of
Yeah, this guy's selling like millions of dollars worth of fucking PNGs, bro. It's
That's
crazy.
so crazy. Do you think NFT is like something that's gonna last, or do you think it's like a fad?
I would say it's gonna last, but there are a lot of sketch things happening in the NFT world right now that I can see why people think it's not gonna last. I don't think it's gonna straight up get like banned or anything, but
Well, I heard like people like Gary Vee are like really pushing how like it's like the future technology, which kind of
Yeah.
like I get if you're looking at it in the sense of like, say like in the future you could own like a mansion in the AR or the VR world,
yeah,
and it's an NFT, and you're the only person who like owns this, and it doesn't have to be like a physical house. It could be even something that's like almost like alien. So
Yeah.
like you have like some spaceship that you could only access with your VR NFT.
yeah, some Warframe shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
And I think it's just like the ownership part of it. How like with the internet, everything's being recycled so much that like it's hard to track things.
Yeah,
I feel like now with NFT, there's gonna be like a pinpoint to like find like who actually created something.
right.
So it's kind of good for the artist world, right?
We're moving into a world where material things are becoming like less and less valuable. Well, I mean, it depends like who you ask to, but you got to look at NFTs like how people looked at art museums, kind of like or like art exhibitions where people would spend kind of like millions on a painting, and like they were able to justify it by saying like, oh, like I love the artist. It's mostly like the name that kind of like judges like the price. But
You think the NFT world is gonna basically be justified like in the same
over
way?
time, yeah, because people are comfortable with owning, like as long as you have like that token of authenticity, which is the actual NFT, that's kind of enough for a lot of people, especially in this world going forward, where, as I was saying, like material things are becoming like almost like less valuable.
Yeah.
In a world where everything is becoming more and more digitized.
Do you think humanity has like gone to this point before and then everything got erased for the same reason? Because like we couldn't have anything physical anymore.
Ooh, are you talking like millions of years ago? Like there was
you know how like we had the pyramids.
Like we're on the second timeline kind of thing?
Yeah, you know how we had like the pyramids and like Stonehenges and nobody knows how it like happened?
Okay. Interesting. That's a very interesting question. I have no proof or any of that, but I'm a big fan of believing that there was like some sort of like alien or like high-tech society, you know, like City of Atlanta thing. Like people say, like the City of Atlanta had like phones and like technology that was crazier than what we have today.
Oh yeah.
But it all got like washed away and like destroyed and stuff. And I mean, it's hard to believe, like we don't have any like real like physical evidence. Just
that's the
like
problem though, right? Like because on the path that we're on right now, that same thing can happen again. Right?
Yeah, there
like,
could be some global
obviously
like destruction.
Yeah, it's obviously still too early, but like I'm saying, eventually, imagine like a time where like the VR world is so good that we don't need physical shit anymore.
That's what I'm saying too. Like, you look at stuff like the Matrix and like even like cyber anything like cyberpunk related, where like the real world is just people care about it less. Like everything you want and more is in like this virtual world. And when we get to a point when that starts feeling more real than our actual world, a place where you can actually be happy in this virtual world because you have everything you want and how you want it, that's when things are going to get scary and dangerous. Now is just the beginning of that. And NFTs are kind of like propelling that forward because, again, like people are going to care more about what they have in a virtual world than the real world. Because like, imagine that, like you need to ask yourself, like, if I can put myself in a virtual world where it feels exactly like the real world, like I touch stuff, whatever, it feels exactly like the real world, but I can have anything I want. I can do anything I want. You know, like you need to ask, like, what would you really prefer? You know, it's tough. It's a tough question.
Yeah, and like humans become more and more complex like that. And I wonder if like the VR world, once we have everything we want, if we're still able to find like depression within that, you know what I mean? Because like, I feel like the more like our life is getting easier, but yet we still have like the problem of finding happiness no matter what. That's always there.
I believe that humans are a race, like we are not meant to be happy. Humans weren't put here to be happy. We were put here to evolve. And that's kind of like one way that I like to live, because then you don't expect to be happy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm kind of like that too. I think in the same way, I guess.
Good, yeah. Because when people expect too much, like expect to be happy every moment of their life, that's when you start that's when the depression like really hits. Because if you're expecting to be happy and you're not, then that's when you start feeling like the repercussions and the pain. But when you kind of have the philosophy that we're not here to be happy, like what does happiness actually bring us? Like it just makes life like more fun. And like that's nothing wrong with that. Like I love having fun. I love being happy. But like at the end of the day, I'm here, I have my goal, and like I'm trying to like change something in the world. And if everyone on Earth had a goal to change something in the world, like imagine how fast like our race would evolve. So and you know, going towards a virtual world is actually like one of those one path we're taking. But even in a virtual world, we're still kind of rooted in our human nature,
like the materialistic nature of this,
materialistic and human nature. So even in a virtual world where we do have everything we want, we won't be able to escape depression.
Yeah, and I feel like it's necessary though. Like you can't always be happy, because if like I feel like being depressed gives you the purpose to like fix that. You know what I mean? Like you need that balance of both. You can't just always be happy and always be depressed.
Yeah,
you know.
I think there's a difference between like just being depressed and like actually having like depression.
Yeah.
Because like people who do have depression, like it's a fucking rough time, and like I've had like firsthand experience with that, and like people who are going through that.
That's like a chemical imbalance, right? That's like
exactly. It's a chemical imbalance, and like the best thing we can do about that is just try to like think about like goals and find a passion to just keep propelling you or someone forward.
Yeah.
And you really kind of like, in terms of other people having depression, like you really need to, you can't give up on them. You really need to bring them, you have to literally be like a saving grace. Like you need to pull them out. And that's something that's really, really hard to do. Like people are not going to say like, oh, I have depression.
Yeah.
You really need to see the signs, and they're really hard signs to see. But you know, like your close friends, if you're fortunate enough to be in a position where you have people close enough to you to recognize like when you're feeling imbalanced or whatever, then yeah, it's kind of like there's some of it up to yourself, but it's really up to other people to help bring you out of that. And you know, like the human race should be connected to a point, and that's kind of like the reason why we have friends and everything. Like we learn from each other, you know, make stories together,
memories.
We kind of spread each other's concepts. Like every human individual, like we each have our own aesthetic or concept.
Right. It's like the net worth. Your network is your net worth. That has something to do with that too, right?
Yeah.
Like the people
Connections is everything.
Did you go to school for graphic design or film?
I need to smoke after that. Is it okay if I smoke in here?
No, you can't. You can't smoke in your van.
I'm gonna smoke anyway.
Stop it. Get some help.
I've always been interested in film and just movies in general, special effects, all that. But in terms of schooling, I come from like a strict Italian family where, I mean, like they're not like strict. Like my family knows how to have fun.
You're second generation?
Yeah, second gen. But because of that, they always told me like, oh, you got to become a doctor. You got to become like, you know, they always wanted me to make a lot of money and like have like this like high tier job or whatever.
It's funny how similar like Italian culture and like Sri Lankan and like Asian cultures are in that sense.
Yeah,
of, like, doctor, lawyer.
It's all the same. Because of that, I always felt like I wanted to pursue art, but I kind of couldn't because my family was not against it. They would always like support me. Like I went to
but they
art
have that
classes
tone of
and
like,
stuff.
Yeah.
But never as like a kind of like a career path. So I was super confused of what I wanted to do in high school and then in college. And it was only like really at the end of college when I kind of figured out like that, like, fuck this, I'm gonna go into film. Like at first I was gonna go into architecture, and then I was
what subject did you go to?
I went to Marianopolis.
Okay.
And then I was pursuing like psychology a bit, and then like a bit of social and English literature. So it was kind of like all mixed up. When I was a kid, I actually wanted to be an archaeologist, which has nothing to do with this besides the fact that I love dinosaurs. But
yeah, but it's kind of cool. Like you're like, I think I might even have had those fantasies of like, you know, just digging up like bones and like finding
how amazing
shit.
would that be? Like your life is literally traveling the world and digging up bones, like or like ancient artifacts.
Yeah, it's like shit you do
sick.
when you're at the beach. You just start digging for no reason.
Yeah.
Like,
I love that. I just love that idea. Actually, on topic, they just recently found like new parts of like the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is like super fucking interesting. Yeah.
Where?
I think in Jerusalem.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's dope, man. I'm gonna check that out. I'm gonna look into that.
But after college, like at the end of college, is when I said, okay, fuck this. Like I'm gonna do what I want. Instead of trying to like please my family. Yeah. So when I started university, I applied for film studies and English literature as a minor. And I had already I picked up photography in college, or videography and photography. I picked up videography first, and then I was like, might as well learn photography. It's like the cousin of film, right?
And you're doing this just on your own for fun?
Yeah, I was doing it on my own. I was just
You invested in a camera and everything?
yeah,
Okay.
I bought a cheap camera, shitty fucking Canon Rebel T3i.
Yeah, the beginner camera. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just was trying to like make stuff, learn how to take pictures and all that, and learn how to make films. And I was just trying to like do what the greats were doing, like Scorsese and Tarantino. I was just trying to like I wanted to like make content like them.
Did
So,
you find
yeah.
yourself always watching like movies and like really getting into like
Yeah,
the filmography of it?
I love that. I
Yeah.
love watching movies, and they're so inspiring. Like to me, like I always get like fresh ideas.
Yeah.
To make art like after watching like a movie. It's really awesome.
There's a show on Netflix. I forget what it's called. Fuck. It's like these like high school kids in New York. Does that ring a bell?
High school kids in New York.
Yeah, they're like
No.
these high school kids in New York. Like there's like an attack that happens, but anyways, like the school gets attacked, but there's like different characters in it. But it's just like the videography is done so cool. Like it has like a New York style to it.
Okay, sick.
There's
Dope.
like this cab scene that's like with the music and like the video and like just like the feeling you get of that scene was so inspiring for me. I was like, fuck, like I need to like I want to like create like I just wanted to shoot a movie right after that,
Dude,
you know? Like,
yo, link me that. I'm down to check it out.
yeah, I'll send it to you for sure.
Sick.
Yeah.
I actually like I love movies, but like anime is really where like I fell in love with cinema because like there are some like real like anime masterpieces, like especially in like the 90s, like early 2000s.
Yeah.
Like holy shit, like those are like my favorite movies. Like if you look at End of Evangelion, or you watch animes like Berserk, Angel's Egg, Ghost in the Shell, like those, like that world, like and the medium. I just love every single thing about it. Perfect Blue.
Those animations seem like they just took forever to make.
Yeah,
Like, so many
100%.
hands on deck.
Because it was all like nothing was digital back then too.
Yeah,
right?
so each frame is like drawn out and shit.
Yeah, it's all like drawn out, and like the backgrounds were like hand painted and everything.
Yeah.
But I love that though because it adds a nice like raw like grittiness, like some grain like on the
Yeah, it's like a canvas, right?
like in like the frames, and I absolutely love it. And a lot of my work is inspired by that era of anime too. That's like my favorite era.
Okay, interesting. Because your stuff looks like super modern. It's like very.
It's modern in some ways. Like I love the notion of like futurism and cyberpunk. But it's cyberpunk as explored or understood in like that era.
Okay.
So if you look at like animes like Ghost in the Shell, like that came out in the 90s, but it's a look at the future world. But like their perception of what the future is going to look like, and that's what really interests me. So like you look at like those like 90s depiction, 80s 90s depictions of like future worlds, and they have like these bulky like huge ass computers, and they're just all over the place. So it's like like they look at the technology they have now, and it's like they just exaggerate it, and like that's kind of like their future, and I like that kind of like a future version of like 80s 90s like bulky like technology.
Right. There's like isn't there a style called retrofuturism?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I actually recently found out about that, and I was just going through all these like pictures of it, and it looks freaking cool. Like there's some old cars with like just like satellite radio. But,
yeah, exactly.
Like a touch screen somehow.
And yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I just love like that depiction of the future. So I try to pull a lot of that into my work.
Are you using your own photography for like some of the like 3D animations you do?
When I did do it, I wasn't as experienced as I am now, so it kind of like didn't come out like exactly how I wanted. But now, if I were to like retry, I'm sure I can do something really awesome. But it's kind of like a project I plan on or a concept I plan on practicing a bit more.
Yeah, I feel like it would just feel cool to like be able to do literally everything from scratch, like the photography, and then using that.
Yeah.
Just transferring all that material over.
Yeah. I have started experimenting with putting like people I know's like as models in my scenes.
Okay.
So like that comes from me taking like a super high res photo of someone like head on their side, and then I take the image and I cut them out and I use that as like a mapping texture that I put on
Okay, yeah,
a 3D
that's what I was
human
wondering.
model.
Yeah. When you're trying to like recreate like a 3D like thing in front of you, you're using something for reference, right?
Yeah.
So you're using your own pictures for reference.
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay, cool.
But a lot of the time, it's just kind of a random scene that I just kind of see in my head that I try to recreate.
Yeah. So
sometimes it turns out like shit.
How does that process look like? How do you come up with a piece for like whatever you post on Instagram, for example? Like, how does that start?
So
it's not a one-day thing, is it?
Well, right now it is, because my goal for 2021 is to create a piece of art every single day.
Okay, sick.
So I'm releasing a render 3D art every single day. And most of those are just kind of scenes that after enjoying a nice drink or whatever, I smoke a bowl or something, and just kind of like, I take a few minutes to myself every day to literally do nothing and just kind of think. And I just put myself in my head and I just explore.
So you're not looking at your phone or anything for inspiration?
No, I throw my phone away. I sit down somewhere, meditative position, or even while I'm smoking, like I go outside, like on my balcony,
just look
stare at like nature, and I just kind of do some introspection.
What does your view look like on your balcony? Is it like trees or is it
like the street, LaSalle houses? But right in front of my house, there's a nice, like, beautiful tree.
Okay.
And it's a really big tree, so like a lot of the branches, the leaves kind of like hang over like my balcony, so like I can get like really close to like the tree leaves, and like I could hold the branches in my hands. So like I don't know, sometimes it's just nice to like take like a really close look at like the top of a tree.
Yeah, especially if you're high, just like
I love it.
Textures and shit.
And my house is in a place where the sun like hits really nice. So like I get like that really nice like golden hour like in the morning and like in the evening.
Okay, cool.
And that's like my favorite time of day. It's kind of cheesy, but like I really love like that creamy like beige pinkish sky that like leaks into your room. And that's kind of like
that's what's portrayed in your art, right?
Yeah, and I use that color a lot in my art actually, like that golden hour like color.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that like after I kind of like do like a little like deep dive, I tend to come up with a few scenes. I write them down, and some are simpler than others. A lot of art, since I'm doing something every day now, sometimes I don't have the time to spend like multiple hours on like one piece.
Do you end up being more creative while you're
in like the shorter time?
Yeah. Like when you're like pushing yourself to just get something done.
I think I'm more creative like when I actually like have time to like work on a bigger piece.
Okay.
Cause like not that the smaller pieces are like uncreative, but it's more like I'm testing a concept.
Okay.
So like I recently just dropped like a series of like crystals, like quartz that I made with like flowers growing out of like the quartz. And like overall, so whatever, it's a kind of simple concept, but like it pulls in like a lot of the themes I like, and like people like them, but it's a simple scene at the end of the day. I'm just trying to experiment with like growing flowers and with designing crystals and stuff like that.
Since you're putting them out every day, are there pieces that you look at and you're like, fuck, like I could fix this a little more?
Yeah, 100%. That just happened. I released a piece 2 days ago. Like the day before yesterday. Which was my interpretation and recreation of one of my favorite anime films, the poster for that movie, which is End of Evangelion.
Okay.
So I recreated the poster, and I love the piece, but I spent like I think 8 or 9 hours on it in that one day, and every time I thought it was done, I always stopped and like I had to go back and change something or fix something.
Right.
And it ended up just being like this loop where I would fix something and then I'm not happy with it half an hour later, and then I do something else, and then I'm not happy with it anymore. And when you get in that kind of creative like block or loop, it's not really a block. It's just like something is, you know, it just doesn't feel like perfect to you. That's when you gotta just forget the notion of perfection. Like we're not a perfect species. Like we can't create perfection. Something is always going to be imperfect to someone. So I just kind of like had to let go at some point, and release it how it was, or else I would have been on it for like 16 hours.
Right, but don't you ever get into that like loop of like just seeing the same thing over and over again? So like the minor changes that you're making are not really, like, you can't really tell if it's being better or not. Like,
yeah. That's exactly what was happening. I was like, I was literally like zoomed in like 100%, and I was like 1,000%, and I was like manually like trying to adjust like the paint, the
texture,
the blood drops that were like falling off this guy's body, and like.
But I feel like when you're in those situations, if you just like leave it and then come back the next day, you start seeing a bunch of different things that you could fix on
100%. And that's what happened after I released it. I was like, you know what? Like, I don't like her facial expression. Like, I wish I did something different. But in the moment, I liked it. And now I still like it, but like, it's a piece that I definitely think I should revisit in the future. And just kind of like work on it a bit more.
Do you have a roster of things to like put out, or? Because are you able to just like choose something out that's already ready to post and then just like work on, you know what I mean, like switch it around, or are you literally just starting one, finishing one, posting it, starting one, finishing one?
Often it's like what I post every day, like I made it that day.
Okay.
But sometimes we're like, I know I have like a 10-12 hour like video shoot like on some day, and I know I won't really have time or feel like rendering something. I'll make 2 pieces like the previous day. Okay, so I have something at the ready.
Yeah.
But knowing me, like often even though like I'm hella tired, I just came back from a 12-hour shoot. I still just force myself to sit in front of my computer and make something. Though it might not be the same thing I post that day, I'm still practicing in some way.
Right. Yeah. The forcing yourself and sitting down, do you find that there's a benefit to that?
Yes.
Even though like you hate it?
What a lot of people like nowadays, they think it's like, oh, if I don't feel like doing it, then like that's okay. Like I don't feel like doing it, so I'm not gonna like force myself and like I'm just gonna do something else. But you see, the problem with that is that when you tell yourself that, like you're not gonna get off your ass and do something.
You're enabling
like,
that.
You're gonna wait.
Behavior,
You're gonna wait like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks until you actually feel like doing something, and then you're gonna work on something, and then you're gonna be rusty, and like it's not gonna be how you like it. And that causes its own problems on its own. So by like putting the pressure and like forcing yourself to like make something like every day, you're constantly growing, you're constantly evolving and getting better at your craft. And again, like you don't have to make something that's perfect every time. I release stuff that like, again, like I don't even find like that good, but it's just like, this is something I made today. I practiced, I'm getting better, and this is what I'm releasing, and it's not perfect, but like to some people, like it's perfect to them, like they're gonna love it, and everything you release, there's someone there to vibe with it. So it doesn't matter if you don't think it's perfect. So,
and especially with art, there's a lot of perception of like,
it's all perception.
People
literally, that's what art is. It's just like when I make art, people are seeing a glimpse into my perception of reality, and
they're not necessarily like perceiving it the same way that you want it to be perceived too, right?
Sometimes I release something and people just like, they completely like miss the point. Like, they don't like, they completely like think it's like a different scene. But that's cool because, you know, it's in the eye of the beholder. So the people who see something different that I didn't see or intentionally put there, they're adding more value to the piece. So I love that.
Yeah, and I like the doing something daily concept. I'm kind of doing the same, but with weekly.
Cool.
With Lowkey, but it's funny with this. like I didn't plan on doing it weekly, and I didn't have the motivation to do it weekly. But I'm just saying, let me build out a set, so that's gonna force me to start doing these, and then people just started hitting me up to come on, and like it ended up just starting to become a weekly thing automatically.
Good,
And
man.
I just started rolling with it, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep doing these weekly, and now I have like enough videos banked up. But that's the thing, it's like the editing process is like tedious, but
Yeah.
the fact that I'm doing it every week, like I'm just naturally getting better at it, and now it's a lot easier for me to go and sit down at my desk. It's like a habit now.
It's a habit.
Yeah.
You're so used to it.
Yeah.
Same thing for me, man. Like, even if I don't feel like it's you wouldn't believe how many times like I get home and I don't feel at all like making art, but I still go do it.
Yeah.
And you just, because it's habit, and now at this point I just don't want to break my streak. So like, that's it. Like, it's gonna keep me
Once
going.
you have that momentum, it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're in March now, and like this year's been so good. Like it's like the first 3 months I've been on a roll, and like, I feel
so
like
far.
you have been too.
Yeah.
And it's probably like the longest. Usually, like after the first month, I'm already like let going of habits. But I feel like that's because prior to COVID, you're doing multiple things like the gym, and you're like doing a bunch of shit.
Exactly.
For example, so like once you let go of one, it like there's like a chain reaction. And you start letting go of everything.
Yeah, 100%. It like, because of COVID, that's what allowed me to get better at my craft. Like, I'm sharpening my blade every day because like now I'm not distracted by like, you know, going out to like meet people, going on parties, like this, that. Like, I love doing all of that, but like now that actually like we're kind of forced to stay at home,
Yeah,
like,
it's an opportunity.
all I can do is like take the opportunity and get better at what I do.
Did that click to you right away in the beginning of the pandemic, or were you still like everybody?
Yeah, 100%. That was like the first thing I thought.
Okay.
Like, as soon as like we like I heard of global pandemic, I was like, yo, that's fucking scary, but also like really interesting and cool that I'm like, you know, I'm living this.
Living through it, yeah.
You know, this is something you see in like movies kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like, you know, it's actually happening. And then like once like the whole quarantine thing got announced, then I was like, the first thing I thought was like, okay, I can't do anything, so I'm gonna do as much as I can at home, and like just, you know, get better at every single thing I can. I picked up like old hobbies like that I haven't touched in like years and years, like
same.
playing guitar and like I took the time to like watch all the anime and like movies that I had never had time to watch. And yeah, it's just been a really, I mean, definitely like not the best year, like 2020, but like there were a lot of
benefits,
important and beneficial parts to it.
Yeah, I think
for the individual.
Yeah, there's like a lot of psychological benefits I find, or like it's a lot of like just our psychology now, like for the generation that lived through the pandemic. I feel like the takeaway is, because you know how we have so many things that we want to do, but it's always on the back burner because like real life is happening. And that aspect of like just pausing, like really like digging into like what you want to be doing, and like giving like time for that, you know?
Yeah.
Do you think AI or like artificial intelligence will ever get to a point where it could do 3D animation like better than a human?
Man, okay, this is a really interesting question because I firmly believe that AI is a very, very scary and powerful tool. And the whole purpose of AI is to like replicate the conscience of a human, the choice making of you know, a human, or like you know, whatever it's programmed to kind of replicate.
Yeah, but that's what we do, right? We try to recreate ourselves.
Yeah. So we're going into like God complex like territory, like, you know, like we're trying to like create like our own like life, which is its own thing, like in general.
I feel like with chemistry, like once we got to the point where we could change like the atoms and the molecules of stuff, that's when we like created God complex. Now we're actually like changing the environment.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think? Do you think AI is gonna take over?
So, like, at the risk of sounding cheesy, I do think AI is gonna be able to create art that a lot of people vibe with, and like mess with. Like really like high cap, like skillful art. And to be honest, because most people at like in this time like don't observe every like little detail of art. Like I know when I post something on Instagram, like I see every detail, but like people most of the time are just scrolling by. They look at it for like a second or two and like, oh, nice, like, and like keep scrolling. So if AI were to create the same art, if AI were to create something in the same realm, people wouldn't be able to tell the difference, you know, like they'd be able to like, they'd vibe with it. However, artists would probably be able, like people who are used to making art every day will probably be able to tell the difference. And what AI does lack is the human soul, which is like the cheesy part. And I really do think that there is like a level of human soul and kind of like nature and nurture that really,
that's emotion basically, right?
Yeah, like emotions that we invoke through and in our art, that AIs can't do perfectly. They can do it, but they can't do it perfectly.
But if AI becomes something that's like learning as it goes, isn't it just like a matter of time at that point before
that's it? Yeah, in time, AI is going to be so good that it can literally replicate a human soul and human emotion. And that's when like AI creating art is going to be like much, much bigger. And I do think that's possible. I do think that AI is going to be able to replicate like emotions and human soul because like you said, it's constantly learning. And it doesn't even need to, you know, like experience those things itself. If an AI is constantly learning, it sees, like, let's say like an AI is observing me, it sees what I'm saying, like, from the way I speak to the way like things affect me, whatever, and then it learns from that. And then, you know, it starts putting like 1 and 2 together and starts kind of like combining emotions and
it's data, right? Yeah.
Sorry?
It's just accumulating data.
It's accumulating data, yeah. And it'll get to a point where an AI just has like this bank of emotional soup that it's kind of like it has at its disposal, and it can take that soup and just kind of splatter it against the canvas, and there you go, AI synthetic human soul.
Yeah, that I find that really interesting because if we could get to that point, maybe you could even like release us from like the labors and stuff, you know, like it might make our lives better in a sense because like all the hard shitty things that we don't want to do could now be taken over by AI, right? Yeah.
But then, you know, it's scary because like what if AI gets to a point where, you know, the century-old fear that AI is going to eventually take over.
That's where you got to become a part of it. You got to Neuralink your brain, you know.
That's it.
Would you do that? Wait, actually, pause. Let me grab some glasses.
Like my alter ego or like this alternate like mindset that I'm trying to bring forward.
Yeah.
Is almost like I want it to be like just the same as my regular personality, but it's kind of like almost like superhero mentality where when you put on the mask, like you kind of like are able to do like even more things. And like I don't like sit at home and like put on my helmet like before I like do some like work or whatever. But I just kind of always like to think that like that I'm creating like this character for myself.
Do you ever do things like change the environment in your like workspace or like the feng shui of things to like get it to a different mindset?
Feng shui, I definitely think is interesting. I don't want to kind of like put in the effort to like change how my whole office looks right now. But something I do like is I kind of like keep my space a bit messy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because I find when things are too clean, too minimalistic, then it's just like a blank slate kind of thing. I like when you're in a messy space, it's a more kind of creative space as well.
Okay.
And I like my brain to be kind of like
cluttered,
messy when I'm trying to come up with ideas.
Really? That's interesting.
Because that's where like the coolest ideas come from. Like I find like if you're trying to be like too clean, too minimalistic with like all your art and everything you do, like that comes off like a bit as like laziness, but like it's too like easy to like, you know, like it's.
I think you just have a problem where you just want to make your life hard. Because like based on whatever
that's a big problem I have. Yeah.
Did you start freelancing when people started hitting you up for work, or did you kind of like go out and find people?
Nope. Well, at the beginning, I was definitely reaching out to people, and the best way for me to learn is if I'm making money at the same time. So, I kind of like when there is kind of like money involved, then I don't want to like I need to make sure like the product, the quality, like it is good, even though I'm still learning. So I'm a big fan of forcing myself into positions where I need to learn and adapt. So when I first started, I was like offering people photo shoots. I did a lot of like free shit, obviously, as everyone does. But I was doing like a lot of photo shoots, like, oh, like $25, like I'll come over, I'll take some pictures of you, or like we'll go to a park and we'll take some pictures or something. Yeah, and then like because I was making like some like sort of money out of it, then like it kind of that's what I was using to move forward and practice more.
This is after the free work. You're doing $25.
It was kind of like at the same time.
Oh, okay,
I was offering like my services to people for like super fucking cheap.
Yeah.
But if I ever got offered like an opportunity that was for free, but like I would be able to expand my network from it, or learn something valuable. Then I would do it like 100%.
Okay, dope.
And over the years, like, you know, the prices end up going up. The amount of free stuff I end up doing drastically decreases. But even until like as late as like 2 years ago, like I was still doing free stuff, like depending on the value that I got from the gig.
That's a cool way of putting it, because I feel the same. It's like you're always technically doing free work, but like you said, it's like less reasons why you do it, right?
And pretty much like where I'm at now is I will not do any like free work for people, like unless it's like for a friend, like as a favor to a friend or something. But even then, like you know, like your friends should also pay you for your service.
For sure, especially because like, it's not like a skill that you got overnight, you know? It's like all that time and effort.
Exactly. If you tell me like, oh, I can be working like on a you know, like a Hollywood film set or something, like then sure, like whatever, I don't care, like I'll work for free just because you know it's a cool experience. My family's not crazy religious, but you know, they went to church. They like an Italian family. They have like that level of religiousness. So that kind of just got me like really interested in like the concept of heaven and paradise. But really, like what I found like over years thinking about it is that heaven is really just a philosophy at the end of the day.
It's an idea.
And to me, how I see that is paradise is the end of the hero's journey. So if you were to look at films that follow like the standard film structure with like the hero's journey, where like hero starts off in like uninteresting home. There's a call to action, a call to adventure, so they have to leave the safety of their home to go out to do some task.
Achieve it,
And then, you know, there's the first hurdle, and then there's finding a mentor, and then there's the next hurdle, and there's constantly like the hero's journey that is growing until like finally you get to a climax. And the climax, and when I say this, it doesn't have to be like because I'm comparing this to people's real lives, and the climax, just because it happens at the end of like a movie or like the hero's journey in this scenario, it doesn't mean that the climax of our human lives are, you know, like right before death or whatever. But when I say like climax, some event happens that is really shaping, and a lot of our journey is leading up to this climax. And right after that climax is what I call the paradise. This is where the hero is satisfied, you know, like the world is saved, the ring is destroyed, you know, like
you achieved like the goal that you
exactly
set out.
the goal is met, and now the hero can be at peace. And for humans, this can happen anytime, right?
Yeah.
So like there are some people who've already like found their paradise, and you know, they worked for something for like years and years, and then even at like fucking 30 years old or like 25, like maybe they worked on something since like they were so young, and they like achieved their goal at like a young age, and like they're happy like after that. And that's kind of like, that's where it's okay to be like happy as a human. Once you achieve like your paradise, your main goal, then you should be comfortable and like and happy with like the remainder of the life there.
Yeah, I also feel at that point you're philosophical enough and have been through so much shit that like you understand what happiness really is, and that is the balance of the good and the bad, and being like sad some days and being happy some days, and you're like just aware enough of yourself at that point to like, understand yourself, you know.
It's kind of like the post climax of the main journey in your life that shapes you for the rest of your life, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So after kind of like realizing like that concept, I really fell in love with it, and I really wanted to show that through my art. But one of my taglines is endlessly searching for paradise, which kind of alludes to the fact that, is it even possible to find this paradise, you know, or will I, it's very, very melancholic. Like, will I ever find like this place where I've met my goal, I can be happy now.
And I think that's what paradise is just the search for paradise.
Exactly, yeah. And then that's like an interpretation of it. So
yeah, that's dope.
That's what really kind of, that philosophy really drives my work forward. I believe that if I consistently create art that are glimpses into my universe, and I'm constantly kind of developing this, I believe I can achieve my paradise through this journey. Like, this is my hero's journey, and everyone has their own.
Yes, I like that, and I'm excited to see the stuff you come up with.
Thanks, man.
Do you have any long-term goals that you want to just like vocalize right now so we could hold you accountable?
My ultimate goal is immortalizing myself through art. I wanted to be able to be remembered for the content I create, for the work I create, and I wanted to leave positive effects on people, and I want that memory to stay alive. Because when you look at it, even in a religious sense, like Jesus was immortal or whatever, they're not necessarily talking about like physically being immortal, like immune to death, but you can become immortal just through your idea, through the existence you lived, and that's just forever passed down through history. So I don't need to see myself like going down like in history or whatever, but if I can like leave like a positive impact that like somehow changed like the lives of many, that will be remembered for generations or whatever, that's kind of my ultimate goal. I would absolutely love that.
Yeah, I think that truly makes like a good artist, especially in today's day, is that purpose behind it, and and it really shows in your work too, because there's, even if there's no emotion in your characters and stuff, there's still like enough to make you stop and think and like really try to understand what's going on, and you're like curious, and then you're perceiving it your own way. There's so much
exactly
there, you know?
And some of my characters like do have emotion too, and that's like rare to see, but it shows like oftentimes the expressions are like, it's almost like a non-human like learning to be human in a way. So the expressions are kind of like off a bit.
It's innocent, like it's like an innocent human.
Yeah, innocence. And the concept of the uncanny valley, where something not human is so close to being human that it's almost scary. So when I do add expressions on like my characters, it's almost like approaching that kind of feeling of Uncanny Valley. And in terms of like kind of like projects coming up, right now I'm mainly just focused on producing art every single day for a year. But I do have like film projects that I will be working on in the future.
Okay, cool.
One of which is a continuation to a previous film I made called Video Child.
Okay.
And the others are kind of ideas of taking my rendered universe that I had mentioned earlier, like this universe I'm creating, and I want to actually like render animations and create a film that's fully animated.
Cool. Yeah.
So I want to do like a lot more of that.
Yeah, that would be super cool to see. I would love to see like that utopia, vision of like a world that you have for sure.
Thanks, man. Like I'm talking like it'll be like, you know, like a short film, like whatever, 15-20 minutes, but just a whole like rendered film.
In that world, exactly.
Yeah.
So like how everything looks like in that. For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming.
Pleasure to be here.
And you stay anonymous. And dude, yeah, you're welcome anytime. You're welcome back anytime. I would love to see like you come back in the future, like after post-pandemic, of like the things you've been doing and like your mindset then versus now and stuff. It would be really cool to see. Thanks for coming on.
I'm excited for that too, because honestly, as like we're changing every single day. Like my philosophies, my mind, like it's constantly changing like every day, because
exactly,
you know we're gaining new experiences as time passes. And yeah, like it took me years to really like get to the point like where I am now in terms of like thinking about like my philosophy as an artist. But you know, all that can change next year, so it depends what happens. Back to being human.